still focusing on the president's speech. We're joined now by Mr. Femi Afolabi, who is of the African Emerging Markets Network. He joins us now to give us his perspective on the speech by the president. Happy Independence Day, Femi. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, and happy Independence Day.
Oh yeah, let's start with this one, where the president spoke about we've got potentials, he says, and that sounds reassuring. He says, look, that suggests that look, we can be better than where we are now, because if you've got potentials, it means you can take a step further. But then he also goes on to speak on several other things. But yes, we've got mineral resources. But if you look at that part of the comment, how would you suggest we take advantage of that?
Well, thank you very much for the question. The president did highlight, and that was where he opened his speech quite interestingly. He talked about the potential we had, talked about arable land, and several other things that supported the potentials it had. But he had a tinge of regret at the end of it. And I think he's in a good state of mind, because ordinarily at 55, when you're celebrating any birthday at all as an individual or as an entity celebrating an anniversary, is a time for reflection. Beyond all the good and kind words people say, it's incumbent on the individual or the entity to reflect. And I think that's what Mr. President is leading us to do. And the regret is because this potential has not been harnessed. So from an economic point of view, he talked about arable land, and that points directly to agriculture. Part of the regrets may be lack of jobs for our teeming youths. And that's an immediate connection, I think, that has with agriculture. Agriculture is something we must do. Mr. President, right from the time of campaigns, even till just after his inauguration, had emphasized the need to cultivate our potentials in agriculture, our potential in mineral resources, the solid minerals, and he talked about the textiles as well. But if we want to prioritize, there's certain aspects, there's certain sectors that only can provide the comfort and benefit we need when they have happened. And there's certain sectors that, while they are happening, can provide you the comfort you need. But I was glad also that he quickly said, somewhere in the middle, that the electorate, indeed the citizens, are eager for results. Quick results.
Just sorry to interrupt your line of thought. I would just like you to, speak to this. He says, after listing some of our assets, our resources, he says we have all the attributes of a great nation. We're not there yet because the one commodity we have been unable to exploit to the fullest is unity of purpose. Unity of purpose usually will not be a resource, but how does that come into play? Or how do you think that this has reflected in terms of how we've harnessed almost all of these resources?
Most times when someone has a challenge or a problem, it's usually said that when you discover or realize you have a problem, there's a beginning of the solution to your problem. I think that's where he's coming from, but I'd like to add a step to it. The realizing you have a problem is not just half of the solution. The situation may still remain despite your realization if you do nothing about it. And I think that's where he's coming from, saying we have enormous resources, but the unity of purpose is not there, which is the one resource we have failed to harness. What he's saying, in my opinion, is we understand our challenges, we're aware of the resources we have and the potential we have, which the world has so much talked about, and lots of us know it. But the regret he has is that the political will and the collective will of the people to do something about the resource has not happened. And I think, I'm sorry, sir, I think one of the ways we can make that happen, beyond just the comments and the responses and commentaries and rhetorics about it, is to distill these things to actionable steps, beyond just talking about them.
Where I want us to come in again is when you look at the potential, the human resource, and especially natural resources he talked about, and going back to his regrets. He went down again to also remind us of what he encountered when they came into office, and that's the inability of so many states to pay salaries. Absolutely. And if you say you're celebrating 55 years of nationhood, of your independence, and we're having a moment like this, which is not too good a moment for us as a people, and you put that side by side with the human, natural resources we do have. What do you make of it? The bailout, side by side with this huge potential that hasn't been harnessed fully to its potential. Is there a disconnect somewhere?
There is a disconnect. The bailout itself is regrettable.
It is regrettable?
It is regrettable in some ways. It's quite kind of Mr. President to have done that. And it shows how humane he is. But when people have a need such as salaries in the states, it was worrisome when from 18 states we understood at the end of the day 22 states were built out. And like it's been said before, if we have 16 quarters in this first tenure, and in quarter one, you're already building out the states on salary arrears, then there's a problem going forward. If you build them out on arrears, what happens going forward? And that's why many of the states still owe. And the regrettable aspect of it is, how do they go forward from here?
Yeah, but you know, some people will also argue, because quite a number of people have said, oh, this is going to impede the creativity of the governors.
Correct.
The bailout is limited.
Yes.
The governors are also aware that there will not be any other bailouts. This is going to be the only bailout. And so we've seen the reluctance of some governors to just spend this money. They've had to sit and plan.
Correct.
Going forward.
Yes.
So don't you think that there's been some reprieve, but then because they know that this might not happen again, they're now being forced to think?
Well, I'm yet to see the result of lots of the states thinking. It's still agitations in lots of the states, and in fact accusations of diverting the funds in wrong directions, and some of the money is going into wrong quarters. Some states have alleged that this was being used to pay for contracts that have been done before, rather than just have salaries for which the money was given. But I think beyond just complaining about the states, let's see if we can make a few points on how the states can make progress. Mr. President has only made a clarion call this morning for our sleeves to be rolled up. I usually like the way Obama did his campaigns. In many of the states he went, particularly during the meeting halls he had, town hall meetings, thank you very much. He always had his sleeves rolled up. In other words, he was prepared for work. And that's what Mr. President is saying this morning. How do we get onto that? Starting with the states, the reason I say it's regrettable is because it's only prolonged a little bit more the capacity of the states to sit down and think from within. But now, having gotten the bailout, and they know there's not likely to be another one coming, not soon, if any, then they're starting the thinking, which they should have started a few months ago. What should they do? Mr. President has given pointers. Number one, agriculture. There are three sectors that the states can explore. A few, well, the Constitution had devolved powers to the states in some areas. Agriculture is one of them. Healthcare is one of them. Education is one of them. But let's start with agriculture. We have a large population of young people who ordinarily have nothing they're doing, many of them unemployed. Yeah. We can fuse these two together. There's a long value chain in agriculture, like it said, from the farm to the table. There's marketing there, there's IT there, there's banking there, there's insurance there. But if, like this government has already done, Bank of Industry is doing a tremendous job supporting young people and supporting production, particularly aimed at agriculture and other aspects of the real sector. If the states are able to focus on the areas of strength, particularly based on commodities and fruits or crops that come from the states, they can have a deliberate program mapped out. But the way they can accelerate a quick revolution in the states is saying, hey, young people, you have access to this fund. These are the value chain we have seen in agriculture. It's strictly beyond, is beyond farming. Farming is one of it, but there's several more things. Tick those areas where you think you're interested. They're groomed over a short period of time. They're helped to access the funding they need based on certain criteria, what they need to do. More importantly, why young people may be afraid of going in there is because there's no guarantee of what happens to the crops or the outcome of your poultry and all that. Yeah. So there has to be guaranteed uptake by government. So if I was the governor, I say, hey, young people, sure, I have a program for the first 2,000 young people. The 2,000 young people come. Each of them define within the entire value chain of agriculture what they hope to do. Poultry, livestock, fishery, whatever it is, or marketing, packaging, insurance, banking, IT, telecoms, whatever. They choose whatever it is they're interested in. They articulate their business plan. They bring it to the funding institution where the states maybe stand as guarantors for these funds coming in. Right. At the end of the day, each person that has expressed an interest is monitored while they do that. But The government can provide, like in those days, you have a commodity board where the government can guarantee uptake or whatever it is you're doing, particularly they meet certain standards.